Hey guys, welcome back to the League-Kempner House. It is Tuesday and it is really yucky down here. The fog was so thick, the drive was awful. But I had to come down because it's an exciting day. I'm waiting on Josh, who is the guy with the skid steer, who's going to come get rid of all of this brick debris, do some more grading for our drainage issues, and really help me clean up this yard. And hopefully the city may come pour concrete today in our first section of sidewalk. I don't know. Then tomorrow I have a conference to go to that's put on by the Parks Board about festivals and events in Galveston, because we're having to learn what we can do with fundraising, what kind of things we can do here on the property. It's just going to be a very busy week. So I'm excited to get started, but my task this morning is to pick up bricks, because this is mostly rubble, but there are good bricks scattered throughout, and those bricks are about $1 a piece to buy. So I have cleaned as we went and salvaged bricks, but there's a few more in there than I could get. So if I could pick up 200 bricks, that's $200. There's also some of the old black square tiles that were used in the original city sidewalks in front of a lot of houses. So I need to save those. Even if it's a half of one of those, it could be cut and used at the side of a path. So I'm going to quit talking and get to work. Just quickly, here's what I'm talking about. Here's a few that I've segregated out. And you can see this is the last bit of demolition that was done on an old tool shed that was on the side of the garage that had collapsed and was unsafe. And there are several full bricks in here that I can scavenge and clean up. And then there's some of those tiles that were those cool black and red paths like I showed you in the house next door. And there's several still buried over in this area. So I'm going to get my shovel and try to get as many as I can. You can see here just how high this ground was built up. We've got to get all that leveled. Here's evidence of an old gas line that used to go into this shed. So I don't know if it had gas lighting or heat. It might have been part of the greenhouse structure, but it's not active. The gas company came out, tested all the lines. You have to have things marked for digging so we know what's what in the yard and where we can work. But there are a lot of stumps over here that need to come out. So I'm hoping his equipment is big enough to get that. And here, that stupid, evil cat's claw vine, you can see it's what destroyed this tool shed back here. There's part of the roots of it. So we're ever vigilant to spray and keep that from coming back. I'm also salvaging and picking up all these little pieces of slate that came off the original roof. It was probably replaced after the 1900 hurricane. Slate became like flying projectiles that sliced people in two during the high winds of the storm. So Galveston actually outlawed slate roofs for a time after the storm for the safer kind of modern composition options that were coming out at the time. But there's a lot of this back here. I guess it was just used as a dump site, and I've already picked up quite a bit. But I don't know if you saw in our community tab, I cut one kind of in a shape and then painted a Christmas tree on it. So our thought was that in our shop on our website, we could sell those as Christmas decorations, and everybody could support us who wanted to by buying one, and they would actually have a little piece of the original 1893 house. So I'm going to pick through. There's quite a pile here. We've already salvaged a lot, but I'm going to pick up anything that I think is a size worth saving. I probably need a bucket. Okay, he's here and about to get started. So there's a before. Let's go over. He's dropping off all his different attachments. After I filmed all this and got home and started trying to put it together, it was just too loud. This skid steer makes so much noise. I decided it was just better to take the audio track off, give you a little background buzz from the skid steer, and just narrate over it. Otherwise, it just blow your ears out. Between the skid steer and then later on the concrete truck coming, it was a noisy, noisy day. So here we go. A skid steer can accommodate over 60 types of specialty attachments, such as brushes, snow blowers, log splitters, dozer blades, tillers, tree pullers, all sorts of things. Josh brought 3 different attachments with him today, 2 different dirt buckets, and a pallet fork. These 3 attachments are really versatile and can serve multiple purposes, as you'll see today. Josh hadn't worked the property before. He was recommended by a gentleman who hauled away the big dirt pile for me. He's busy on a big long-term job, and he was kind enough to refer the work to someone else. So a big thank you to Choppa Construction for that. Josh had a few questions about the best way to load the dump truck, and then it was time to get going. The dump truck will fit through the gate, and we tried that once, but the trees and the inlet line get in the way of loading, and then the dump truck is just so big that it will barely get through the gate. So we've found it's just easier to leave the dump truck on the street, but that makes me a little nervous because then the skid steer has to go back and forth between the gate to unload and load. But there's really not much alternative, and the skid steer is much smaller than the dump truck, so I just cross my fingers and hope for the best. The gate's in a really bad shape anyway, but we don't want anything worse to happen to it. It felt great to see the first load of bricks scooped up. It would have taken me about 30 minutes to load and then unload that many bricks into the back of a pickup truck, not counting the drive time to the dump site. So this is a much more efficient way to do it, and it actually saves money. Now I've got to do a toad check. Okay, I don't see any. It's not worth saving. Okay, maybe we'll get lucky. If I have to pay Ricardo or his crew the time it takes to load and unload, I can use that money and cover the entire cost of getting all these bricks loaded, hauled away, and getting the property regraded and all these stumps pulled up. So this is a much better way to do it, and you'll see it makes a big difference quickly. I think the first load held 7 scoops of brick. I wish I knew what that weighed, because almost all of this brick came from removing the basement floor, and that work, as you saw, was done by hand, and these bricks were hauled out of there in wheelbarrows. There was a lot of wheelbarrow loads of brick. That's a ton of hard work by Ricardo and his crew. I was a little worried about how he can spin around in place, just basically do a 360, because the tracks on this thing really destroy the ground underneath, and it worried me because later he's going to be out doing some things where he's on my brand new grass out there, and I don't want that to get all torn up. I caught a glimpse of the city through the fog, so I went to chat with Omar and see what was going on. Omar needed us to do a little bit of vehicle shuffling. I had to move my car so Josh could pull their trailer up because they're parked back where the city is going to work, and apparently the cement truck has been ordered and it's on its way to start pouring the sidewalks, so that's really exciting. You can see they're going low-tech and using scraps of concrete to hold the rebar up, because those little plastic risers that you normally see are just too high and would make the rebar come out of the top of the concrete. The rebar needs to be up off the ground but fully embedded in the concrete to give it strength. I think I mentioned before that the sidewalk replacement is being done as part of a City of Galveston program that uses a cost sharing to entice residents to put in new sidewalks. Ours, like many others in Galveston, were in terrible shape and not very safe for people walking around. I paid about $11,000 for my part, which is just the material cost. The city provides the labor. I also have to pay to have the roots removed. That cost about another $3,000. Y'all saw Ricardo and his guys doing that a while back. This is a lot of sidewalk to remove and redo, plus there's 2 driveways going in. I think it's a bargain, and if you're a homeowner in Galveston, you should check out the program. The dump truck was full, so the driver shook it a little bit to level it out, and then he put on the cover and headed to the dump site. He had never been there before, so I spent some time with him in Google Maps showing him where it was and explaining where to dump in case the site was unmanned, which it often is. While he was gone, I went to check out the pile. There was definitely an improvement, but there was still a long way to go. A lot of the remaining pile was sitting on the concrete garage floor, and I'm trying to salvage that and not have to replace that floor, so I was a little nervous about the bucket of the skid steer damaging it. Josh maneuvered that giant thing through a small opening and gently pushed the bricks out of the garage and onto the dirt. While he was doing that, a giant rat ran out of the pile. My husband would have freaked out. He is one of the toughest people I know, but rats are his kryptonite. Josh changed buckets and put on the one with the big teeth and started going after that stump. That stump was in the way of completing the drainage plan to move water from the retention area to the street. It's right where we need to dig a channel to get that water to flow. I spotted something I wanted.
I want that.
Josh brought a helper with him, and he was wonderful. He saw me running around picking up good bricks and pavers, and he started doing the same thing. Between the 2 of us, we probably salvaged enough brick to pay for a third of the cost today.
There she goes. Whoa! Glad I moved. Okay, that's huge. Gone for the forks. Pick this thing up.
A long fork can be used to go deep underground to pry things up. We had a bit of a scary incident with it later on that I didn't get on video, but I'll tell you about it when the time comes.
Wow.
I was so busy watching the stump removal that I didn't notice the cement truck pull up. So I had to run over and check out what was going on with the sidewalks. I've said it many times, but it's worth saying again. These sidewalks are going to make such a difference in the overall appearance of the house's curb appeal. And I'm really excited to get handicap ramps at the corners and start making this property accessible to all.
They've already done the ramp. The guys are so nice. They helped me put my name and date in the sidewalk, and they're going to work around it.
This made me so nervous. I think it was worse than the stained glass removal. Josh started doing some very delicate stump removal right up against the original wrought iron fence, and his helper brought the chainsaw out and cut some roots to try to minimize the stress on the fence area. And in the end, the stump came out and it looked great. Because we're less than 3 miles to the dump site, the driver of the dump truck agreed that his truck could be loaded really heavy to minimize drive and dump time. He gets paid by the hour, so it was very nice of him to work in the most efficient way possible. Later on, Josh was so nice, I asked him if he was going to take a lunch break, and he said no, because he knows the dump truck driver gets paid by the hour, and he didn't want to slow the process down. So he was very respectful of our money situation, so I ran out and got him a pizza so they could grab something to eat in between the dump truck loads. With the stumps out of the way of the drainage channel we wanted to put in between that retention pond and the street, it was time to move back and work behind that garage area where Ricardo and his crew had taken out that old falling down tool shed. That area was really messed up and had a lot of cleaning to do, and then a lot of grading work to do to try to get that area to drain properly. You can't see us because we're back behind the skid steer, but Josh's helper and I found another load of bricks under the dirt, and so we were busy getting that out of the way while Josh tackled the big stuff. Josh put those pallet forks back on and started going underground to pull out this old concrete curb that used to line the formal gardens when the Kempner had the house. A lot of them are missing, they're broken, not in good shape, and can't be saved, so they needed to come up. And this is where we kind of had the scary incident. I was standing way out of the way watching, and I didn't have my camera with me because I had it on the tripod doing a time lapse, and I was looking down fiddling with something, and all of a sudden heard a big thud. Well, as Josh was lifting one of those up, it snapped and broke free with such force that it flew about 15 feet in the air and landed at my feet. It startled and scared all of us. And while I went to get the pizza, I came back and the whole area was done and cleaned up. There was a lot more stuff to remove back here than either of us thought. In the end, I think it took 5 full dump truck loads to get all of the original brick debris and all this junk from behind the garage hauled off to the dump. There was a little bit of fine-tuning of the grade of this area. Remember, we're doing all of this work to get water to move away from the house. I know it's out in the yard, but the yard has a lot to do with the health of the house. And remember all the water issues that we have going down in the basement. Getting this graded properly and moving water away from the house is really important. Tree out of the fallout zone. Thought we might see some critters run out. So he did a little bit more fine tuning, and then we tackled another stump. Come on, little guy. You're in an unsafe area. Okay, that wraps it up for today. It looks great. The big stumps are gone. We've got a little grading done. All that brick rubble is gone. Most importantly, the channel going to the street from the retention pond is dug. And we are expecting a big rain tonight, so hopefully I'll get to come back and see where the water flowed. It'll make patterns in the soft ground, and I'll be able to check it out and see what went on. And then I'm working with Josh on a plan to do the side of the house because it's got issues too. It all slopes towards the house. There's a bunch of bamboo over there. It needs to be cleaned up. It's pretty trashy. So I'm on a mission to get the yard done. So thanks for watching. Be sure and go check out our website, League-Kempner You can make a donation, you can sign up to volunteer, or you can just check for upcoming events because we are going to start opening soon for scheduled tours and doing some fun things around the house. So we would love to see you here. Y'all take care, and I will see you back next time here at the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas.